What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Trying a new format here. No face cam. Helps me get these out faster. Don't have to constantly rejig my setup with the lighting, all that good stuff. And we get some more eyes on the gameplay, less eyes on me. Let's jump into Three Crow versus Enozlliks. This was played prior to Ascension 5. Group stage has concluded. We're setting up playoffs and organization and all that stuff. Let's see what these guys have in store for us. And I gotta say, as soon as I jump into a match that is going to be casted by me, I'm so ingrained within me to do F10 O N E, which is the keyboard shortcuts for setting the network latency to extra high, because that's generally the most fair environment based on all of the various options that we have here. So we're going to go ahead and get our camera hockey set up. But yeah, when it comes to the fact of the matter is, generally speaking, you're dealing with different connections from different places in the world. You kind of need that extra high latency, which is unfortunate because it makes precision macro, or rather precision micro, a little bit more challenging. Three Crow has been playing random a lot. I didn't get information as to whether or not he was random for this particular game, but he does indeed end up as Protoss either way. He's the Ultramarine Protoss in the top right of Repulsion. And on the bottom left-hand side, the T-Green Zerg, Mr. Extended Warranty. That's Enozlliks. Now, as I call him Enoz for short, one of the things that absolutely is the case is he's still learning the project, but mostly he's still learning RTS fundamentals. He said before that he feels like his RTS fundamentals need the most work. He needs to try to be a little bit more on the precise side, and particularly he needs to get a little bit better at handling like the micro things without falling behind elsewhere. Those are some of the observations he's made about his own game. Meanwhile, I guess Three Crow's kind of in a similar boat, right? They've both been following the project for a long time. Three Crow's been playing for a lot longer, so he's familiar with a lot more cheeses. He can help newer players get acclimatized to the different things that are possible within the project, which is always entertaining. As of right now, just going to go ahead and scout out that Hydrith Den, as that is what Enoz feels the most safe doing. And maybe doing a little bit of tickling here and there. It looks like it had the opportunity to, but elected not to. It's going to be a lattice first for Three Crow. I'm not actually sure that Enoz clicked on that structure, but there is a little bit of a fog of war lag time where after your worker scouts something, you'll actually see stuff behind you. Under normal circumstances, I think that might actually be fine. An interesting K-Grunt here. This obviously does consume a worker, so you want to avoid making this if you can, but I think seeing the lattice, he's expecting vassals. If that's the case, then this spray should actually be directly north of the Hacharosk, because that provides you with the opportunity to protect your flock of workers, right, for a very wide range. But if you're expecting that you need 2 K-Grunts, then I guess this setup is a little bit superior, because you can guard like the right-hand hemisphere of your base, essentially. But yeah, there's actually Wardens down here, though. So what's the reaction going to be? This is a lot trickier to deal with if you're a bit of a newer player, and the Warden is about to complete, so that Hacharosk is going to have to get canceled. Trying to focus on the Scribe is not a bad shout, but obviously in this case, one more shot would have done it. Coming in from that right side, he really needs to be careful here. Yeah, he's going to lose it. If he just holds position there and deals some damage to the pylon, maybe it makes Three Crow think a little bit twice about what's going on there. At the same time, there's a Simulacrum coming instead of a Vassal. You could absolutely see Skither Cores here to fly across the map, but it looks like Mr. Extended Warranty here is going to need to collect his insurance policy and cancel that Hacharosk. Surely he cancels it, right? Right, guys? He has to cancel it. Don't do this to me. Oh, he didn't cancel it. Well, there goes 300 minerals. Yes, the counter is attacking him with Skither Cores. Or canceling the Hacharosk, especially. Get your 225 minerals in the bank. No, they're just a little bit typing back and forth here, the Shambler special. Trying to navigate what's happening here. I mean, there's no follow-up, because it's just Wardens. So Three Crow is actually giving him... He's giving him, like, misdirection. You don't want to build a Quasath after, you've opened up with Hydrith. You want to just fly across the map and do damage to him. But, at the same time, do I expect Three Crow to actually tell him how to beat him when he can still absolutely beat him at this stage? When you see 3 Wardens, you can't push out with that. I mean, you could build an Ovaleth and elevator your units across if you wanted to use Hydras instead of Skiths. But, yeah, at this point... Yeah, okay, now we're getting into the actual counterplay here, right? But, we'll see what Enoz has. Learning how to deal with Wardens is always an interesting strategy. I was just saying earlier, Three Crow is the kind of person to introduce newer players or less experienced players in general to the different things that you can do in the project. Now, this is actually just a staple of PvZ, especially at lower ranks in the ladder in StarCraft 1, because you will absolutely see cannon rushes. Now, usually you do it behind the minerals, but in this case there is no behind the minerals, right? So this map actually is a little bit less favorable for that. Now, at the very least, this Droleth is scouting out to see what's going on. The Protoss shenanigans that Three Crow are pulling continues to be entertaining. We'll take a look at the Mega Thread in the meanwhile to find out when this match was submitted. That will have some information about whether or not Three Crow was random or not, as if it matters. Oh, actually, it looks like maybe this was just submitted in general. It might have just been a replay that was sent to me in DMs or something. It's hard to know. Oh, yes, building a Nexus over here to expand. Your opponent will never see it coming. It's just a couple of sims, and the Arden Authority is probably for an Acantor. There is an Obeleth. It will start to elevate her Hydras out. It's a little late for that now. Enos has the right idea at much too late of a time. And I think this is another thing that you'll see with newer players, is they tend to be a little slow to adapt, and then they figure out what to do, and then when it happens, it's like, oh, it feels like it wasn't effective, and therefore it wasn't the right idea. No, it was the right idea. You had to have it happen much sooner. And that can be a little frustrating for newer players when they're like, but I thought I was supposed to do that. There's also an idle worker up there. Probably hard to see in the heat of the battle, or whatever is going on right now. There's an embassy coming, and, if this base was scouted at any point, you absolutely would see that, this attack force running over it. Back at home, there's actually nothing coming out of this Arden Authority. The attack force can absolutely do some damage here. And, as much as I appreciate the worker scouting out this location, I would have built a base with that, right? I would have recalled this because it's already outside of the contain, right? So the wall doesn't stop this worker from being able to set up a base somewhere else. I also would have definitely been adding more macro hatches. It's very late here as well. That's something that Enos has gotten better at since then, since this game was played. This is a little bit of an older one. Okay, the Architect is about halfway done. If the Pylon gets sniped, well, I'm not sure if this Pylon is also powering the Arden Authority. And it will be a Hatchrosk on the low ground. That's a little silly, considering your opponent is constructing Siege. He is going to try to focus down the Pylon, but his units are moving a little bit awkwardly. There you go. The right target. This is bad positioning, obviously, but yeah, okay. He unpowers the Arden Authority. He should definitely be fighting these units as opposed to the buildings. It's getting a little bit messed up here, and losing a lot of Hydras to Sims. Now he needs to not be too boisterous and charge into those Wardens and head first. This Pylon doesn't power anything, but he's doing some eco damage. I mean, as if it matters, because both of our players are floating an enormous amount of money. All of their focus is on the battle over here. Despite that, some units are still wandering into an awkward position. The Architect was cancelled. That affords a lot of extra money. But yeah, at this stage, I think the Simulacrum Swarm is growing too vast, right? Especially when the Scribes get involved in the fight. So we're going to see a couple more Scribes fall, but it's nothing too significant. And a Pylon will go ahead and repower it. In fact, the fact that he canceled the... Oh, he's even adding more static defense. Why? I mean, I've got 1,000 minerals. I should spend it on something. While this Hatchrosk is done, we'll see what that can afford. Meanwhile, more elevatoring happening. A Quaseth is here. No air units, though. I mean, why build air units when you can transport them, 3 at a time? Well, here come the Sims. Surprisingly, this Hatchrosk is scouted by his opponent. What? You can just walk down your ramp? At the end of Group B, we did receive a comment by none other than Stratus Tygo, who asked, does anybody remember Bronze League heroes? And he had like a neutral face, a :L. Well, I don't know who's going to hold the L at the end of this game. I suspect it's Enos. But Three Crow's being very inefficient about it, and even though he's repowered his Arden Authority and created a lovely little sort of on-ramp there, this Droleth has somehow managed to escape. And, I mean, the Hatchrosk probably won't survive. But if it had a little bit more HP, and if there were a little bit more Sims, actually, the Hatrask would have lived in time to see its compatriots come over there. All right, the Drilla turns into a Hatrask. That's very good. I'm starting to feel a little bit like Greth now. I don't have the bad green screen. Admittedly, I have to give credit to Greth. He did fix his microphone volumes. So at least there's that. Hey, turning it into an egg just to slow them down a little bit more. I mean, you're losing 50 minerals, but maybe the time it buys you is going to be worth more. We see the engagement coming in. Some Vorpicores are heavily armored, and Simulacra do struggle with that. A lot of these are wounded as well from splitting earlier, so that was an overwhelmingly effective fight. Positron was the choice of 3 Crow. It might end up escaping here. Yeah, just barely. And all the Wardens here is absolutely not going to be shut down. I think this Lattice is also depowered, by the way, so he's... You know, it doesn't always tell you the thing, but we'll see. If that ever starts queuing something, maybe that'll be the clue. This is before Positrons became intercept only, as opposed to picking your target, which I may revert later on, but I felt like maybe they could use that, considering they are pretty powerful, pretty cost-efficient. I felt like maybe they were, in the hands of skilled micro players, they might have been a little bit too cost-efficient, and I also didn't want to, you know, increase their cost super heavily to be more in line with that, because it just felt like maybe that was the wrong choice. Yeah, here's a pylon to repower that Lattice. And he is slowly mining from this base. It's only minerals. He's adding a lot of scribes, but you know he's getting a Cantavus, some Dracodons over here. This is probably going to come as a bit of a surprise here for Enos. Still just one dutiful Ovaleth. Ferrying units back and forth. We have some Skittercores. We have some Iziricores. I mean... Really, the answer here as well, something that people may not remember, is that Wardens don't have detection. So if you can burrow Enozlliks within range, there have to actually be units there to attack. So to stand on the Enozlliks to reveal it, or a witness or something. And technically, the embassy is here. So if he did that now, it might not work. But that's a very unconventional choice. Building an engram, being very on the defensive side here when he doesn't really need to, but there are more forces being amassed. I think Enos thinks his opponent is on one base, and that's due to, you know, poor scouting. But you also wouldn't expect your opponent to build in your third. In fact, if Enos had done that here, he probably would have gotten away with that Hatrask. Either way, though, both of our players technically on 2 bases. 3 Crow far outstripping him, outpacing him in terms of resources, but isn't harvesting any gas from his main. Only the 2 gas workers right now. So that seems to have been a bit of a miscommunication there. Adding Heralds into the mix, they're very good at restoring shields, but they're short range. So it would be a little surprising to see them be super effective. Ovaleth has abandoned his post, has to come back and be the ferryman once again. More Hydras. At this stage, you know, you definitely want to see more workers at this base and maybe more macro hatches on the low ground so you can reinforce your army without that APM sink. And some Sims reveal themselves, but are a little bit cautious of the Zerg horde that is gathering at their doorstep. Psystorm over there would definitely help, but Cantavus is all the way down here. 3 Crow deciding what to build. More gateways. Sure. A pillar of the community, 3 Crow. Helping to popularize very cheesy bullshit. He might also be playing with his food a little bit here. I'm not 100% sure, as he should be aware that Enos is a little bit more on the newer side. But some Positrons are being lured out, and the reaction here, it doesn't seem to be there. I mean, 3 Crow's busy just, you know, just macroing, just doing stuff. Now he sees, oh my god, they're attacking me. I'm willing to suspect that he didn't receive a subsequent attack notification because his Positrons took the fight initially, and then he probably saw the Zerg backing up and didn't see his units attacking into it. So that might have something to do with it. The Skittercore Horde could absolutely kill this Warden without being in range of the engram, so that could be an angle. You know, when you're fighting against static defense, it helps to start to know their ranges, sort of approximate that, or at least limit test that. Now there's going to be a very large force going to try to break down the door here, and our extended warranty man, Enos, has been ferrying all of his units out, so he has nothing at home, besides a couple of Hydras that he's forgotten about. And there's nothing to scout this, right? There's not a Kagrant closer to get vision. There's absolutely nothing. And it seems pretty unlikely that you'll be able to bust 5 Wardens and an engram plus the residual units that are being trained with any amount of Tier 1 Zerg. It's not impossible, but it feels quite difficult to imagine. The ferryman is just staring, just like can't believe what he has to do. This is what he's been reduced to. He didn't even unload all of them. Why's the fat blimp gotta do stuff so improperly? This is a nice come down after watching Ascension. You know, we saw exciting mass wraith play. We saw Veek be competitive with mystery meat. We saw all sorts of stuff. But we also see some circuits being attacked. Hey, these hydras, you could ferry them on the other way. It's all that Ovaleth really needed to hear. I have to do even more ferrying. Oh, get back in. Duty calls. Here comes a psionic storm. Oof. Absolutely zapping. And that's almost certainly going to be game. I do like that the elapsed time says it's been 25 minutes, by the way. Normally you don't see that because my face covers it. But here comes the Skiths. They may not be aware that the Atreus provides shock and awe. And here's the Wardens from the beginning of the game. Splash damage from the Atreus helping to clear out all of the air units. Some units just sort of contemplating the meaning of life. They can join me in the struggle. I also contemplate the meaning of life sometimes when watching Cosmonic Brood War casts. A Hydra then being rebuilt. That's not exactly tier 2, but it'll do. Enoz's famous for building his very valuable tech in the wrong position. And again, no macro hatches at this base. Like, at any point, it feels like he could have potentially snapped out of a fugue and done a couple of choices, made a couple of choices that would have helped dig him out of this negative position. But he didn't make those choices. Maybe he'll have some ideas in the future. I think the real counterplay, though, is absolutely just not getting into a position where this happens to you in the first place. Always good to try to look around for a scribe when you're facing against Protoss. Hey, the Azira Core is doing a lot of damage to these Zealots, but there's way more where that came from. And the circuits have now fallen, so the actual military units can be attacked. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, you can see the top left-hand corner there, the minimap movements coming around, just scoping out the rest of these bases, wondering why his opponent isn't GGing yet. Well, 3-Crow, sometimes I wonder that too. But there goes the last couple of military units that are actually relevant because these two are just sort of idling. And there's a storm. For good measure. But don't worry. He's got a Hatrosk building. And he's got a lot of... Honestly, he's got a lot of money. He's about half of what 3-Crow has in the bank, but... I still got this. His Hydrith is dying. He'll have to build it a third time. He does have 2 Hydras, which is not 3. And, yeah, he's about to have nothing. So I'm not 100% sure why I was sent this replay to begin with, to be honest. But maybe it's for things like this. We get to see the GG as the Hatrosk spawns, and that will conclude the cast. What a shocker. And the whole time, you had no idea it was happening. Honestly, hats off to 3-Crow for, once again, providing some entertaining tism for me to cast. But, yeah, if you're ever in this position where you're being Warden rushed, or proxy, static defense or whatever, it seems dumb. It seems stupid. Why is your opponent doing this to you? They're playing dirty instead of playing the game the way it was meant to be played TM. But I guarantee you just waypoint a couple air units into their base. You'll have a much better time at potentially holding it than what Enoz showed off today. And that will conclude our game.